denk dat die 1 of 2 keer dit is en 9 uur 's morgens
Oh ja.
ja, hallo.
Ja, dat is ook waar.
Ja, in ieder geval ook. Blijf 25 minuten. Maar dat is prima, weet je. Niet. Ja, hij wil weten wat
ik moet even weten of hij beweegt hier. Ik heb wel de setup klaar liggen. Ja, als hij verder gaat, als hij slide veranderen, of hij dan daadwerkelijk een record. Ja, je hebt daar ligt volgens mij zo'n dingetje mee te switchen. Ja, ik moet even weten of hij beweegt.
Ja, Hugo kan wel weer het draaien van...
Nee, hij heeft de hele update niet. Ja, zolang ik hem hier open heb, wel, maar anders niet. Dus hier zie je heel erg hij neemt niet echt op.
Wat is het probleem?
Ik moet een live verbinding van die slide in mijn stream krijgen, maar omdat ik gebruik een meeting room om dat te doen, maar die meeting room update alleen maar op het moment dat de screen active is. En dat is niet mijn active screen.
Oh, ja. Ja,
maar
daar moeten we er niet mee doen. Nee. Laat het maar gewoon zo. Kun je later nog uitzoeken.
Nee.
Kijk, heb je de slides die je nu daar allemaal hebt, heb je die ergens klaarstaan?
Ja.
Ik zou die meer nog een keer met mij kunnen delen?
Ja. Zou ik via Google Drive doen?
Ja, gewoon stuur maar gewoon naar Jorian@Iconica.nl. Hebben jullie je presentatie samengevoegd?
Ja, klopt.
Oké, maar dan is het voor jullie ook makkelijk. Kan ik in de pauze ook alleen maar die presentatie klaar zetten, kan ik het daar gewoon doorklikken. Deze weg.
Ja, die waren heel leuk gelukt. En, maar dat mede dankzij Rijk goed erop gezet.
Hoe heet dat?
Ja, de tweede keer ben ik
Hard aan nadenken.
ja, superleuk.
Mijn mail, PC Extreme. Ik kom gewoon echt niet op hoe onze mailclient ook weer heet. Ik was het vergeten. Ja, PC Extreme. Ik heb hem alweer, hè. Wat ik dan ga doen, is ga ik iets opschuiven. En dan kan ik de presentatie ook zien.
Ja, want ik dacht de eerste keer dat het daar was.
Je gaat gewoon zelf naar de presentatie.
Dan
ga je zelf mee.
Dan ga ik zelf meeklikken. En dan kan ik gewoon switchen.
Dat heeft toch niemand.
Dat weet ik niet. Deze is nu actief, als het goed is. Bereik is nu actief en deze heeft geen audio.
Is het een gratis programma?
Als het krantjes uit is, is het
Nee, die presentatie is gewoon helemaal leeg. Had je hem verstuurd?
Hij had hem verstuurd.
Dit is een gratis programma, ja. OBS. Oké, maar ik kan hem niet openen als PowerPoint. Nee, ik moet een link hebben of zo. Als je me de link kan delen, dat...
Nee.
Als het goed is kunnen we nu... Die. Zo. Dan hebben we die open. Dan moeten we daar...
Ik dacht, het is ook leuk voor haar om zoiets mee te maken. Want het was fotograaf maken, dus ik denk dat er niet van mee.
Als het er ook
Nee, verkeerde. Ik heb maar zo. Deze. Ja. Oké. Die ook. Overzetten naar deze. Oké. Ja. En deze. Overzetten. Ja. Als het goed is, hebben we nu die. Ja, ik heb... stream is al live, maar ze kunnen nog niks horen. Ze zien alleen dat het... kan...
Ja?
Ja.
Dus, kan jij kijken of de stream bereikbaar is voor jou? De stream op youtube.com/Iconica. Dus,
Waar staat die link?
die staat op onze Meetup site. Dus die staat ook op... maar als het goed is kan je ook gewoon naar YouTube en dan zoeken
Ja,
naar...
de link?
op YouTube zoeken naar...
Ja, hier live. Deze link?
Kijk op.
Ja, die werkt ook, toch?
Ja, dat is hem.
Dat is cool. Deze deel je?
Hebben jullie audio? Als je nu geluid aanzet, krijg je dan...
Ja.
Hij staat er wel.
Kom maar heel even.
their knowledge. So thank you all for being here and have a good time.
Well, welcome everyone. My apologies if my English is very rusty because it's been a long time ago I've been talking in English. I was told to tell you something about the establishment of BeepForHelp, how the plan originated, and where we are standing right now. To the beginning, I'm one of the founders of BeepForHelp. The idea originated of the first founder. We're with a total of 3 founders, and the original idea was to start a platform to connect people who are needing help with people who are able to give professional care, like care from a nurse or care from what we call in the Netherlands a home care. But as soon as we talked about this concept, we actually came to the conclusion that it's really complicated to start this, because when you look at the Dutch legislation, it's really difficult to start such a platform, because you need people with a specific registration. They call it a BIG-registratie. And to able to get those people working for you, it's a really a difficult way, because first of all, people need to know you, and second of all, you need the people who need the help. So we turned it around. So basically we said, okay, we are still going to make a platform, and then we are going to provide the care for people who don't need medical care, no special care, and what we also call the caregivers. This help that is being provided by a daughter, a son, or a neighbor, and that's how it actually started. And then it was back in 2018 when we started to think about, well, what do we need for this platform? And of course, we also looked at other platforms, the well-known Uber, for example. They use the platform to connect people who need a taxi and the taxi driver. So we use the same concept, but then for the people who needed the help and the caregivers. And also in my experience, my background is that I've had several jobs in the medical care, and I saw that it was really limiting in the hospitals, in the home care. People who had relatives who really needed care, they didn't have time to provide the care, and they were like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to give my mother or my dad the care that they need, especially if you're very busy yourself? And then we thought, okay, why is there not an app that could create this type of connection? And that's the plan how we worked out further. And that's we schemed everything. We made diagrams to see what do we need. We have a caregiver. We have someone who needs the help. And eventually we make the decision. Okay, are we going to start or not? Are we going to do some research on what we need, or is it a big risk to start this? Well, I can give an easy question on the last question. Answer on the last question is a big risk, because it's whenever you start a company. You never know where it will end, and eventually we took a decision to start, and it was back in 2019 again. So we contacted a company who made apps, who made the technique, and after a couple of years we came to the conclusion it's not that easy to make an app, and especially when you look back and when you're now, you see that there are a lot of improvements still needed in the app, because there is a constant loop of people who give feedback to you from what does the app need, and what do we need as a company. So finally we started the 1st of September last year, and we see it's working. It's not really working as it's starting like a fire, but we see that the beginning is starting. A lot of people are getting to know us, and people are actually using our service, and the people who use our service are very satisfied. and hopefully we can actually provide this kind of service in the future. So, but we also know there are a lot of risk factors. That first of all, we are dealing with the population because we are focusing on the elderly people who are 65 years and older. And first of all, there are technical difficulties because that kind of population, some of those people don't know how a smartphone even works, for example. Most of those people want to have a telephone call. You want to check who's the person, who are the people behind the company, why would we trust this company, and are they really going to give what they're promising? So there are a lot of challenges, but basically the startup is, what I've learned in our last 2 years is you just have to do it. If you believe in a concept, just start it. Yes, it is a big risk, but where you don't start, you will never know. That's basically the concept of the idea, and now we are working very hard and trying very hard to make it work. And also, we need all the people that we have contacts with, and we try to continue with these kind of cooperations. Sorry for rusty English, it's difficult to talk. Okay. So this gives an idea of BeepForHelp. Then I'm giving the word to, I don't know, to Heike of Margaret.
Dat is goed.
Ja.
One second. Misschien moet ik iets verder naar rechts staan. Pak de camera.
Ja, en er is een klikker, hè?
Ja.
So I have a few slides as well. Apologies. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Margaret. I've been involved for 12 to 15 months, I think. Last year, February, March. I first started talking to Carlo and Gerard, and since then we have, I think we've started, recruiting people and actually kicking off the concept that Carlo just explained. I've always worked in HR for bigger companies, so for me this was a leap as well. I've never actually supported a startup, so it was a great opportunity to see if whatever experience I gained over the past years works, and you're able to apply it to a smaller company and make it grow big. Because all of the things that I had learned over the past years is processes and structures and procedures, and it's all quite rigid usually. And this is from the bottom up. It's a totally different story I've learned by now. And when Annabeth asked me to talk to you here during this session about HR and building an organization, I thought, this is a bit tricky, It's only a year, only 15 months. Is it not too early to look back? But actually, I think it is a great opportunity to do so. At least for me, anyway, because I put some information together, and you start doing a bit of research as into how do other companies do, how they start up their company, what processes are in place and what not. What helps, what hinders, and I guess it also tells you a few things about what we could have done differently, but I think we're early enough to make changes and adapt and be flexible. So it's probably a bit, there's a bit of textbook stuff involved as well. So building a new organization. Carlo and Gerard, or Carlo mostly, just talked about, a concept, and, they had been discussing the concept for quite some time. And then at some point, you need to decide, are we going to go for it or not? And I think this is typically what happens, right? We all have this sort of romantic idea of startups where people are working in the attic or in the garden shed for a year, and then all of a sudden, as magic, this brand comes to life, and in a few years' time, it's as if it has always been there. I think most of us around here know different. It's not as romantic. It's hard work and a lot of hard work, I think, and also taking risk. And apparently, in the Netherlands, after 5 years, more than 1/3 of the startup companies have disappeared, so they didn't make it. And we're in the top 5 countries. So in most other countries, this number is actually worse. I think in the United States, it's up to almost 90% of startups that don't make it. So apparently we have fertile ground here for startup companies, so that's good news. But still, it takes risk. It takes, you need to make bold decisions. But what are some of the criteria? I mean, there's lots of criteria or reasons why companies don't make it, and I think they're all over the place really. They range from legal issues, financial issues, you name it. But when I looked into some of these researches, there's a number of things that keep coming back that are criteria for success, or at least give you a very good foundation to start off your company. And I think the first one is very relevant for BeepForHelp, so solve a real and felt problem and be innovative. That is a very critical one. If there is a problem in society and people have experienced it for a while and nobody has come up with a good solution, then, and especially when this is an innovative solution that nobody ever thought about before, then you have a very good chance that people will jump on it. Also important, I think, that, whatever is out there is within reach for a lot of people. So it's open to a wide audience. And timing, I think, is a factor. So when the pain is felt for something, then people are more likely to embark on it, of course. And the next one, focus and tenacity. You want founders to be passionate and just go for it, and don't take your eye off the ball. Stay your course. Try to also see some of the things that are around your goal, but this helps. Collaborate. Apparently, when you're in a network organization, so you tap into other people, you're not reinventing the wheel. It saves you time, and it might also open up other opportunities that you had not seen before or considered before, simply by talking to other people. Flexible and adaptive to change, so you can adapt your organization to changing situations, not only personally, of course, but also as a company. And the last one is be out there, so make sure that you have a unique proposition that is, very visible. People can find you easily. Those are the things that I kept seeing when I looked for, success factors. Now, what has all of this to do with HR? I think that's the big question. I think what happens a lot of the times is that, founders are so engaged in their concept and in their growing their business and keeping the eye on the ball, which is a good thing, and they should. But at the same time, in these early stages, it is good to think about, what kind of company do I want to be? When I grow bigger, are we going to be very informal? What kind of people do we want to attract? Are we a working from home company, for instance, or are we going to be an office-based company? All of these small decisions are eventually forming your company culture. And at this point, when you're just starting and you're moving from your attic to your first small building, this is where I think the rubber hits the road, and you need to decide, who do I want to be? And you can still influence it. And so that brings you automatically to the next one, choose your team carefully. because they are going to be the culture that you want to foster and create. And not only, of course, in personality, but also in profile. What kind of people do I need? And they will become, pretty much an ambassador for the next person that you're going to recruit for your company. So it's critical to look at not only, flexibility, creativity, all these things will decide who you are going to be. And onboarding becomes then even more important because people typically want to know, where are we heading, right? What is your vision? What is the point on the horizon that we want to be in a couple of years? And what I didn't know, but apparently almost 40% of people quit their job in the first 6 months. So that's a very high number, and that is universal. So it's also in the Netherlands. So you really want to be very clear on, what are you going to do, and is there a, social fit, a cultural fit, all these things are also, I think, discussed during the onboarding. And then focus on your fundamentals, of course. You can attract people, but you need to make sure that you have a few things in place. It doesn't need to be gold-plated, but just a few things that will get you going. And other than that, I think it is important to just stay in tune with the people that you build your team with, and become employee-centric and an inclusive organization. And last but not least, have fun. So this was us last week.
Mooie boel. Mooie boel.
Yeah. And then, so that was textbook. Now this is BeepForHelp. So this is our journey, and I'm sorry, I'm in your way. Oh, you can see it here. Okay, very good. This was our journey, at least from when we started recruiting people. Prior to that, of course, a lot of hard work had happened on the technical side and the thinking. But in March 2022, we decided to start a recruitment campaign. And I remember we sat together in The Hague for an entire afternoon. Luckily, we had asked an expert on recruitment. So this is the network tick. And she was quite adamant, actually, that we wouldn't leave the room without defining some kind of core values to put out in our vacancies, so that people at least had an initial sense of, okay, this is BeepForHelp, and they want to be innovative, they want to just do it, and there were a few other things that we had sort of put out. This is going to be us, and of course you can adjust, but you need to have something to attract people and give them the first idea. So I was very happy with that decision. And so we had our first employee on the 1st of June, and the new home, because that's when we started looking for this place, actually, where we are today. I think on the onboarding here, that was probably a bit tricky, room for improvement. It was in the midst of holiday, so I was away. I think from then on, we had a good sense of, okay, onboarding is important. We need to make sure that we get it right as well. And then we continued recruiting people, actually, so the team was growing. By the time it was the 1st of September, we had the app live. So people were actually able to submit a request for help. And we had people that were, going to their house and help them out. Can't remember exactly, but I think we had 5-6 people at the time. And in the last quarter, we realized that it was important to be out there as well. People could actually find you and find your brand and also we had to decide how we were going to reach people, because this is not the social media generation that we're targeting. So we had to focus maybe a bit more on offline marketing campaigns as well. And also stay in touch with your customers. You know, what is it that they want, so that you can be flexible and adapt when you need. And this is where we decided to recruit more the back office roles, so customer service, marketing. And that team was on seat in January. So we have Marike here and Rijk, who's doing the marketing. And I think that was a big boost. So all of a sudden we had professional people doing, you know, the marketing and reaching out, social media campaigns, but also it gave us a good opportunity to really connect with people. So you know, you received help from us. What was your experience? And then you also start to learn more about your customers and your products. And in April we started our flexible workforce, so the number of requests for help was growing to the extent that, you know, it was time for a sort of a next level where you have a flexible pool of people that you can tap into when needed. This is actually the first time that we formalized the onboarding. We had a formal onboarding session, and I think this is what we will hopefully continue to do with every new group of people that starts on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And then into the future, hopefully a new home again in 6 weeks from now, expand the flexible workforce. So quite a journey already, and you know, looking at some of the criteria that you saw on the previous slide, I think a lot of them were there, maybe not all to the extent that, you know, you should do it by the book. But anyway, there was quite a basis of HR things, and which is, of course, you know, important when you're a labor-intensive service. But also credit to, I think, Gerard and Carlo for, you know, seeing the value and the importance. So that was, in short, I think, the journey. I'm not sure if this raises any questions with anyone. Not at this stage? Okay. That is.
All right. On to the next slide. We will talk about marketing. First, we will talk about the table of contents. I will talk about lots of marketing today. First, about the team. Why marketing? There are different types of marketing. For example, digital marketing, content marketing, offline marketing, and also a lot of trends going on. If you have any questions during the presentation as well, please ask them. First, I will introduce myself as well. My name is Rijk van Duren. I'm 24 years old. I live in Amstelveen together with my girlfriend, and I've studied creative business here in Amsterdam. And now I'm working here since January with lots of fun and a great team. This is our marketing team, but our team is also bigger. We also have the customer service, ICT, business development, HR, and of course the owners of BeepForHelp. And together we are trying to grow BeepForHelp and try to help people at home. For example, elderly people, but also people who need help. And that's why it's really important to know your target audience, where we will talk about later this presentation. I have a question for you as well. Which marketing message that you have seen, for example, today or this week, did you like? And maybe if you can, tell why. Has anyone seen an amazing ad, for example, from Netflix or Disney, that they were thinking like, maybe this was a good ad? No?
I saw one advertising campaign that was all over the city where you see a sign that says forbidden for handicapped people. This sign does not exist, but it is everywhere.
Ah,
So
yeah.
that was what really struck to me. Like,
Good.
let's say, it struck me.
And do you also
Sorry?
do you also know from which company it was?
That's for an organization, Zonnebloem. And they help people that are disabled. And it's apparently Amsterdam is very closed off from people with disabilities because there's no, I don't know the word for it, drempels.
Yeah.
Or stores, or you can't go to the toilet with your wheelchair. So it's actually not accessible for people in wheelchairs.
Okay.
But it was really a good campaign, I thought.
Yeah, maybe we can also highlight them with, from BeepForHelp that we're also helping people.
Yeah, we will definitely, when we have a new building in a couple of weeks, I hope we will be accessible by wheelchairs.
Yeah.
You go to the toilet if you need with a wheelchair. I thought it was a good campaign, really, I think a bit shocking, but yeah.
Good. If anyone else has seen anything, just let me know. I will go on then. Why marketing is important? Yeah, some people are already told, but marketing is essential now for increasing the brand awareness and also to attract new customers. And it's really important to gain now a brand identity, and that's now why we are making, for example, beach flags or a poster, and also do ads in newspapers to get new customers, but also to have a strong brand identity. And if you have that, then people will also trust you, and then they will recognize you, and also will come back to your company because they trust you, and they think like, maybe this is something for me or something for someone I know. So it's also really important for every company to have a strong brand identity because it's gaining trust. So another question is why marketing is part of communication. Yeah, that's also something that what I just told is it's really important to know your wants and needs of your target audience. For example, are they watching TV in the evening, or are they going for a walk? Are they reading a newspaper, or do they like to scroll on Facebook? If you know those kinds of types of the target audience, what they like to do and their behavior, then you also know how to target them, how to reach them for your ad. Our target audience right now is people who are looking for reliable and fast help. It can be an elderly person or someone that is just needing help at that moment, or help for in the future. We can also just schedule a meeting or a help. We can also just schedule a help for them at home. And that's why it's also really important to have personas, because if you have a persona, I don't know if you know what it is, if you've ever seen it, but persona is showing your ideal person who you want to reach with your ad or your company. It's also really good to have it. We have right now 5 personas. For example, Dirk, that is a little bit older, and he likes to watch TV or likes to listen to podcasts. And if you know his hobbies and where he's from and what he has studied, then you know a little bit more about that person that you would like to reach. If there are any questions, let me know. And why communication is part of marketing? Yes, for example, if you are starting a company, and you think you have a great idea, you have the gap in the market, then it's really good to let people know that you have a new service or a new product. So that's why marketing and communication is there, to let people know I have this product or this service on sale. Then you have the funnel, that's like this image. You have multiple layers, and first you have the see layer. People will see you, and they're like, I have never seen this before. And then the think layer, they're like, maybe this is something for me, and maybe I can use this service. And then in the do layer, they're really buying that product or the service, and then people are like, it's amazing, I'm going to maybe buy it again. And then in the care level, they're like, I bought this brand new shoes from Nike, and I want everybody to know it because it's amazing. And then you have the amount of word marketing, the mond-to-mond reclame, that people know. And also this layer, not a lot of companies use this layer, the care layer. It's also that people who have already bought a product from your company will get a certain amount of discount, for example. And then people will most of the time come back to your company because they feel like they are, how do you say it, gewaardeerd, so they are appreciated, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's also good to have a slogan. For example, from McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Yeah, just to go back one slide, I think for Beep, at this point, our goal is to be seen first,
exactly,
and thought of, and then cared for, because the customers we have, they really care for us. They are actually, most of the time, ambassadors. They really use our service all the time, because they are really happy, like, it's so easy. I'm happy with the one who came at the house. So for us, it's our goal to really first be seen, because you have to gain the trust, and then a lot of people do recurring requests. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. And then it's also really good to have a slogan. People will then, with one sentence, recognize you. So, for example, McDonald's, I'm loving it, or Nike, just do it. And if you then see those sentences in one sentence, you already know what the company is about, and then people will also think, maybe this is something for me. Then the next slide, digital marketing. I think you're already familiar with it, but website optimization is also important. People will visit your website, they need to read everything and need to know if everything is clear for them. That's why it's also really important to have sometimes research from your audience to see how they will read your website. Do they have any feedback from it? And then you also have search engine optimization. That's from Google, and paid advertising on Google. Now I will show you what's the difference between it. So we have the advertising over here on top, and sometimes also on the right, and you see also the advertising. And you also have the search engine optimization, and this is organic and this is paid. And this is with keywords for search optimization, and also with good linking on other pages or metadata. It's also a really big part of marketing. This is what we also do together with our collaboration with Afdeling Online. It's another company that helps us with Google ads and also search engine optimization. And they also do the Facebook and Instagram ads. And it's also really important for those ads that will look the same as the offline ads, that you have the same brand identity. For example, if you have different kind of font or different kind of color, then most of the people will not recognize you. It's really difficult, so that's why the brand identity is important. Then you also have content marketing. That's most of the time with blogs or with videos. And then you will share your knowledge and expertise about your company online. There are multiple ways to do that: to entertain, to inspire, to convince your target audience, and to educate them. It can be with a cool video, but I think it's really important for us to also show our ratings and reviews online, because then people are like, hey, I saw that BeepForHelp has a 5-star rating from a customer, and then they will trust you as well. So there are multiple ways to do content marketing. And especially in this age, people want to know everything right now. So for example, if there's something happening somewhere in the world, people will already know it from their phone, or most of the time from their phone or online on their laptop. And then you will think, is traditional advertising dead? I think it isn't, because it's good to have the same appearance what I just told as the online marketing, then people will recognize you and it will look the same. There's one big difference between online and offline marketing. It's really easy, I think, to track the online marketing. You have the data, and with offline marketing, it's really difficult to track it. So, for example, we had a big campaign with posters in Amsterdam, and it's also really difficult to know how much customers came from the avi's, the posters, the billboards outside. Most of the time we hear it from the customers, or we saw it in the visitors on the website in those days. But most of the time with online marketing, you can really see it with data inside analytics or inside Facebook or Facebook Campaign Manager. The pros and cons, I think, it really depends on your product or your service, what the pros and cons are, and also your target audience and your budget. But I think it's most of the time I will advise to do both of them, and people will see you on the streets, but also on their phone or on their laptop. I have a question for you. Do you know what the mere exposure effect is? No? Do you want to guess, maybe? Okay, I will tell you. I think it's really important to repeat the same message again and again. I've just had a conversation with Dirk as well, and he says from his experience that most of the time people need to see your ad 16 times, because then they will recognize you and see it in their mind that, hey, it's BeepForHelp. I've seen them in the newspaper, online, and everywhere. For example, Nike, you will also see them on the streets, or Netflix, or a big brand. For example, we had these posters, what I just thought about, together with amazing photographer Sander Stokman, and we photographed real people, because we think real people are also showing customers, and also we think it's also good to show the real people to also gain the trust. And yeah, with some fun words, do you need more time for each other, give us the things that we need to clean your house. And then we had some good reactions from people from outside, and also from our colleagues inside BeepForHelp. We also do social media marketing. We post regularly on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And we also have nice comments on that, and also a variety on different kind of posts. We sometimes post reviews. Also in the stories we post, for example, that we are on our way for a new helping. Hoe say het? Nieuw naar een helper, naar een beeper toe. We show real pictures. We say that you can meet the team. It's really important to have different kind of pillars or pilaren that people will then recognize as well. Also, we have a lot of videos on TikTok. Some of them have multiple views, and also on Facebook we are posting regularly. I think in the future it's also good to maybe do a collaboration with an influencer. It can be funny, but also good, because people are trusting an influencer. It's the same like word of mouth marketing, because if an influencer says like, hey, I have just been helped by BeepForHelp, then a lot of people will see it, and they also trust that person. For example, we can do a collaboration with Oma Miep, and she's 80 years old, and I think it can be funny, but also people trust her, I think. So maybe in the future you will see BeepForHelp on her page. Then the trends, I will be short because the time is almost over. What I see is there's most of the time short videos right now on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and also artificial intelligence is really growing. For example, ChatGPT. You can also do keywords research with that for Google search optimization, and also with Adobe Photoshop. There's a new function inside, and also VR event-based videos are right now also being shown on, for example, There was a video inside here, maybe I can show it later, for people that would like to see it. But for example, was from the Stranger Things, maybe you know it. It's a big series on Netflix, and they had videos shown on, for example, the Empire State Building in New York, in Mumbai, big building, and in Madrid. It was all shown on a big screen on the buildings, and then people were taking pictures of it. And after that, they saw that a lot of people were watching that series, and it's also with HR and VR and a lot of technical things. That's it. If you have any questions, please leave me.
I just wanted to add to it that I think we will be continuing to have meetings sometimes during the year, so we can also talk to our customers and partners. And for now, we have a very good evening to do that, to talk to each other. Iconica will soon, in 15 minutes, start their talk about the app and the technical things. We have little goodie bags there when you should leave. You can get a goodie bag. There's a key cord in it, and a pen and a flyer, and feel free to take one home with you. And, yeah, thank you. Zo, je kunt weer een drankje pakken.
Do you have a thing on your
As soon as everyone is seated for to use is able to listen again, I would like to continue. People that are still here. At the start, I gave a short message about the presentation. I'm going to talk a lot about me or the company I work for. So I'm going to start with that. I'm just going to quickly say who we are. Then I'm going to give the word to my colleagues who are going to talk about testing in every kind of way. My name is Joey Boerwinkel. I am a lead developer and I manage the meetups for Iconica. Iconica is a software development company. We mainly make apps using Flutter, but also are involved in other tech stacks and various products. We've been doing that for 5 years now, and as you can see around you, we have some booklets laying around of everything we've done. So if you ever need something in terms of an app, a website, or anything, come to us, I'd say. But Gerard made me say that I don't take our best developers.
Please don't.
But also we provide training in technology, so if there's ever anyone interested in learning anything related to Flutter or software development in general, we also do that. That's about me and about Iconica. Now I'll give the word to Loïs and Jorian, who are going to talk about testing from the perspective of a developer and from a perspective of a UX designer. So,
good evening, everyone. I hope you're ready for the next presentation. We're going to talk about testing software. So, testing between the design process and development process. I am Jorian, like Joey said. I work as a software developer at Iconica, and this is Loïs. She works as a UX UI designer at Iconica, and she's going to talk about testing in the design process, and I'm going to talk about testing in the process of developing. And when testing is done a lot in between steps of the process of creating an app, so testing flows back and forth between development, design, and the client. So the clients get an early insight in the design and can provide feedback, so where we can improve, and we test to see if all those requirements are implemented correctly. So the first phase in developing an app is designing and testing the design. And that is what Loïs is going to talk about first.
So, why is testing a design important? Companies can easily push aside testing or forget to test the design when there's not much time because they just want to make the app and get it ready to use. But it's actually a big step to save time because you can find mistakes or things that you forgot about early in the process when you're creating a new product or a new service. And there's a few steps we go through as designers before the app even gets built, and I'm going to run through all of them. Step one is make a design based on the client's wishes and user research. For example, I have the Beep app, so a mobile app and the web app. I just made a quick example, the primary color and the secondary color. We make a design based on what the client wants, and also user research that we did. And the client gives us logos and colors, or we're free to make a branding ourselves. When we made a design, this is where the internal testing starts. So we have multiple designers at our company, and before we send it off to the client, we want to see what our colleagues think of the design, and we look for a few things in this. And mostly is it user friendly, so focused on the target audience that's established. For this app, it would be elderly people. Did we forget any screens? So maybe you made a flow and to get back to some other page, you need a page and you forgot about it. And especially if you hang up every screen like this, you really notice what you're missing. Is the content in a logical place? So, for example, is a button easy to find, or a menu, yeah, anything really. And does the design fit the branding? So, did we use the right colors? Did we use the right icons? Yeah, based on this, we always get feedback from our coworkers, and we take this with us in another iteration. So we make some changes in the design, and then we go on to the next step, which is the client reviews the design and also gives feedback. So we made a design, we go to the client, we show them the design and ask them what they think of it, and does it match what they had in mind? Are they missing anything? Do they maybe want to change some colors, some buttons? Do they agree with the flow that we built? Most of the time they will also give us feedback, which we will then again take with us and make another design iteration. Yeah, it can keep going in circles. You can have few or many design iterations. It's never just a straight line, it always goes back and forth. But after some time, we do have to start building the app. So this is when we pass on the design to the developers. We will walk them through our ideas, and we will let them know to ask us questions if they need anything. Yeah, that's when we can start building. And there's also some testing involved with that, so that's what Jorian will tell you about.
Okay. Thank you. So there are a lot of different ways to test a piece of software. You can use a script. A script contains of test cases and its corresponding test steps, which include all requirements of the system. And when you follow that script thoroughly, you can verify if all those requirements are implemented correctly. But there's one problem with scripted testing, and that is that an application can be navigated in a lot of different ways, especially if it's a complex UI. So that's why it's recommended to do some exploratory testing as well. So that's when a tester would use the application freely on its own, and so that you can easily find hidden bugs or errors. So it's recommended to use both of these methods when testing. There are also black box testing and white box testing. Black box testing is when the tester does not have knowledge about the internal workings of a system. And white box testing is when the tester does have knowledge about the internal workings of a system. So white box testing is always done by developers, and black box testing can be done by testers or users or designers. And black box testing, you test the system as a whole, and it's about the external expectation of the system. So you test all the functional requirements of the system. And when white box testing, it's more about smaller pieces of those internal workings, like algorithms or pieces of code. And typically you use both of these methods when testing. And a lot of testing methods can be automated, like unit tests, for example. that's when a programmer writes a piece of code, tests another piece of code, and see if the output that is expected with a certain input, sees if the output is as expected with a certain input. You can also automate performance tests if you want to see how well your system will perform, or if it's able to handle a certain type of loads. You can use tools and software to monitor your performance of your application, and use software to simulate a lot of users logging into your application, so sending a lot of requests to the server and see if your application can handle that. You can also automate testing of UI, so you can ask a group of testers to go through the UI. You can also write code that will emulate user input like mouse clicks or mouse movements or key presses, and see if the output is to be as expected. Automated testing is a lot more reliable than manual testing, because humans can make mistakes while testing, especially if it's a really big system and there are a limited number of testers available. And obviously, automated testing is way faster, but you need human judgment as well, because the application is made for humans after all. So I would recommend both of these methods. So use automated tests to quickly see if your application is still working after you add a new feature, and manually test things that are really hard to automate or impossible to automate, or need human judgment. These are the four main stages of functional testing. Functional testing is when you test if your application implemented all the functional requirements correctly. And functional requirements are all the things that your system must do, can do, so all the features that it needs to implement. So the first step in functional testing is unit testing. That's where you test really small pieces of the applications. Those are called units. So you write code, like I said before, to test a piece of code and see if the output is to be as expected with a certain input. And but it's important that that your code is constructed in a way that those units can be tested independently and individually. So if your code is too intertwined, this is impossible to do, and your code is really hard to maintain as well. So second step is integration testing. That's where you take components. Those components consist of units, and components can be made by different programmers or third parties, and you test the integration between these components. So the goal is to detect defects defects in the integration between those components. And when you've tested the integration, you can test the system as a whole. So take all the components together, test the system as a whole by testers or developers, see if all those functional requirements are implemented correctly and it's all working properly. So you can go on to the final stage, that is acceptance testing. It's a lot like system testing, so you take the system as a whole, but this time you don't let developers or testers test your system, but you ask users to do that for you. So you can get valuable feedback about how the users would use the system. You can also test the non-functional requirements of your system, and non-functional requirements are things for how the system should perform. So other aspects of the system, like how secure it is, how fast it is it compatible with certain type of browsers, for example. So one thing you can do is performance testing. You can use tools to do that, like I said. So you test if your application can handle a certain type of load you write it to. You can also stress test your system, and that's when you take your system beyond its peak load and see what will happen, so you can identify bottlenecks that way. Security testing is also really important to do, so you can ask a security expert or ethical hacker to look through your applications and maybe find bottlenecks or security risks, like unauthorized access to certain information or privileges. And you can also test the compatibility of your system, so test if your system is compatible with certain browsers, operating system platforms, or resolution configurations, and see that if it is all supported, what you want it to support. And one important thing is to do a usability test, and that's where you test the ease of use of your application by end users, but Loïs is going to talk more about it later on. So when we developed BeepForHelp, we used a lot of these testing methods, like unit testing, for example. We written a lot of unit tests for our backend and frontend code. We don't write unit tests for our code. We only write code tests for the most important parts of our code, the most complex business logic. So we don't write tests for UI. We want to work efficiently, so we do that manually, or else it takes too much time because the UI tend to change a lot. Next, we also test the integration of those components we are using. We also use third-party components like payment services, for example. So we test that too, and each sprint, so each iteration, our project manager will go through our application and see if all the requirements are implemented. And there will also be a designer who will take a look at the UI and see if it's all according to design. And if there are any bugs, then we'll fix that and move on to the final stage of acceptance testing, where we distribute our apps to a small group of users and deploy our backend to a staging server, so we don't use real data, it's test data for the acceptance test. And usability test is also a big part of this, and that is what Loïs is going to talk about now.
So usability testing is really just ease of use and is everything in a logical place. You can basically already do this with a lo-fi prototype. You can even test it with drawings, but I'm going to speak about usability testing after it's been built. And there's a few steps and a few things to take into account when doing this. The first step is making a test plan, and usually you write down your goals, so what you want to find out, and you write down a few small tasks for a user to complete. So, for example, log in or upload a photo. And this is how we find out if the design is logical for the target audience. Usually we also ask the user to speak out loud what are they thinking when they're making their decisions. So we can really tell, like, why do they think this should be over here and not over here, or why are they not finding it? The main goal of these tests is to find out if the user understands this design and if it's logical for them. Finding test users is, of course, really important, because otherwise you can't do a test. Usually you will need between 5 and 15 test users, and this is just because after 15 people you will most likely get similar results, so it's not really of any use. Finding the users can be done in multiple ways. Of course, you need to know your target audience, and either the company you work for, the client can look for them. We also look for them sometimes. You can make a post on LinkedIn, on social media. You can ask people that you know, anything really to find test users that fit the criteria. It's really important to make sure the test users feel comfortable, because people are often afraid to make mistakes. So you really need to reassure them that they cannot make any mistakes, and if they can't find something, that's something we as designers can improve on and not them. It's really normal for them to feel insecure about this. There's even a term for it, which is well, the Hawthorne effect. This is where people can, it switched back on the laptop, but not on here. Anyway, without doing it on purpose, act differently than they would naturally, just because they feel pressured, because there's something watching over their shoulder. Especially within a target audience of it's elderly people that might not feel comfortable using technology. So yeah, just keep repeating, you can't do anything wrong. It's just for us to make the app better. And we get a lot of valuable results out of this, and we can again decide to make another iteration, or well, at some point the app has to go live, of course, and after that there's more testing to be done, which is again developer testing, so Jorian will do about that.
So when we've done all the testing, it's finally time to deploy our application, and users can finally use our app. So when they are using our app and they find problems, they can report bugs, and we log errors in our application, so we can see, we can get a little bit more context about those problems users are having if you take a look at those logs. And they can also provide feedback through the App Store, and the client can also provide feedback. And sometimes those feedback can lead to new features, and those features get planned into a new iteration. And this whole process of designing, developing, and testing can start all again. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this presentation and learned something.
Finding testers. So we try to run test sessions with potential or already customers from time to time. We struggle big time to find volunteers. Is there a trick or a tip that you can share?
It can be really difficult because of course you need someone to come over to you, or you come over to them and they need to make free time. You can, I don't know, sometimes I've given them like goodie bags or something, so they actually get something out of it, and try to make it sound fun, I guess, because doing a test maybe sounds intimidating. And especially, as I said, with this target audience, it's a bit more difficult. I think it will always be a little difficult, but there are some tricks like goodie bags, make it sound fun, and create a comfortable space.
I have a question as well. Do you also use for testing with the audience heat maps, or?
I don't know if we do it at Iconica. I think we've been trying to implement it.
We're,
I have used, yeah.
we're in early stages of that. We're just exploring the use of heat maps and app interaction logging. So it's, I know that a colleague of yours, Paula, is currently setting that up. It's together with Niels, right? Yeah, here. Setting it up. So we're just early stages. As soon as we get some results from that, we might actually put it to use.
Okay. I have another question. Do you also use something of ChatGPT or artificial intelligence with writing codes or anything from that?
Writing code, I don't know, but we have like tried it out. I think there's now a thing for Photoshop where you can generate images. So one of my colleagues tried it out, and also if we want to find, we do internal like presentations as well. And one of my colleagues did a presentation on how to use ChatGPT to write a test plan, for example. So we are looking into that. And it's interesting, but sometimes, like, the result of that presentation was we do need our own expertise to look over it and check it. We also try to make personas with ChatGPT, which is actually really interesting. And we would use that again.
Some developers use GitHub Copilot, it's kind of the same thing, but I'm not that, I don't think it's really that helpful. And sometimes it can help you with some repetitive code, but it won't do all the thinking for you.
You still need creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it possible to prevent all the bugs before going live with testing?
I don't think that's possible to
why is that not possible?
even really big companies with large projects can do that, like Google or something. They still fix bugs or security bugs or something every year.
Well, Google can, but Iconica can.
Sure.
To add on to what he's saying is basically you have to imagine that if you have like a flow from going from A to B where you have in between you have 10 choices, that means you have 1024 test cases if those choices are like binary choices, yes or no. If those choices are even like, let's say you can pick a time, you have probably maybe 10 edge cases that you have to take into account. So if you have that, if you do that 10 of those, then you have 10 billion edge cases, and that's one flow. So to write 10 billion tests is quite a waste of time for like something that you can probably test by just having someone try to use the app normally. And sometimes a bug will occur, but they will generally be such a low occurrence that if you would with normal use, and then as soon as a common bug comes up, you can solve that by testing it once, writing a test for that specific bug, and then whenever it comes back, you can catch it early.
Is this the last presentation?
I think so. That was the last one. Thank you all for coming here, and thank you, Beep, for making sure that we have accommodation and all the food and drinks that we have. Jorian, can you show because I sent you a QR code to Slack. There's a review form, or like a feedback form for us to, because we always try to improve these meetups, and these meetups have been, we try to get a larger audience, get more people involved, and see if the subjects we talk about are actually like aligning with our audience. So there's it's a small short form. It can be totally anonymous. If you can leave your name and company, but it's not required. And you can scan this QR code to fill in the form. It's not required, but we would really appreciate it if you give us some feedback. And I think that's it.
Well, thank you. Drinks are open, there's hapjes and drankjes.
There's bars and drinks.
The bar is open. Rijk, did you have a playlist for us?
No. Maybe we can do it.
Cool. I'm curious. What's the playlist, right?